In our first segment, we talked a little bit about checklists and why you want to make those checklists and why they will ultimately become part of your procedures and process, and what are you going to be doing and what is the normal thing, standard operating procedures in a variety of different parts in your business. Now, going forward, this segment, we're going to cover and get into a pretty good high detail about system and process and what the difference is between a system and a process. And we're going to spend a lot of time in tool crafting. And as a leader, as a director, you're going to have to understand what are the technology tools that I need to select, how do I configure those tools, and then how do I get user adoption as high as I possibly can. And so for the people that are operating in my environment, if we're operating from a centralized type of a database, how are we inspiring those people to use the tool, to use it effectively, and kind of in alignment with what our expectations are? So in simplest terms, let's define what a system is and what a process is. A system might be very complicated, but at its core, it's all about keeping track of information. It could be a pen and paper, it could be index cards, and it could be an Excel document or any other type of computer system. It might be a CRM, right? Client management software, or anything in between. The level of sophistication of this really has to do with who you are and how you operate, how you're operating your business. There are a lot of very sophisticated systems out there. So that's fine. You have all this technology and you have no productivity. Well, why not? Because a system is a system. It doesn't work itself. It's like having a bicycle and no one's pedaling it. Greatest bike in the world. It's going nowhere. So let's talk about the other term that we have to define, and that is a process. What the heck is a process? A process is what is your behavior around a system, and what are the things that you're doing, and what is the expectation for your other team members. Roles and responsibilities are broken down into tasks. These tasks are things that are being done with a system, or in cooperation with a system. So you have a system, which is a piece of technology, but then you got a user. That user has to do certain things. So processes are all about the checklist that we already talked about. And that is, what are the sequential events that have to happen every time we take a listing and put a listing in a team environment? Well, I know I've got to put it in the MLS. I know I've got to process some paperwork. I know that I got to I got to get some signage. I got to start promoting the listing. All right, those are the 15 things that are part of your marketing strategy and your marketing plan. What are the tools that are required? If you're going to make a flyer and send it out, where does that flyer get created? Are you using Canva? Are you using some kind of an Adobe product? Do you have a third-party vendor that takes care of that for you? And who's managing that? Okay, so now you've got this integration between systems and processes that creates efficiency, and it creates getting tasks done. Most of the people that I interact with, most of the realtors that I work with, mortgage lenders, they buy a brand new CRM and they get incredibly frustrated because, well, I got this CRM, I got all that covered, and I'm all set. I'm like, well, it's only 50% of the equation. Like, on a daily basis, what are you doing in that CRM? What are you looking like? What are the things that you're tracking? How are you defining success on a daily basis when you interact with that tool? This gets a little bit frustrating because we think it's, in our minds, we can envision what we want to see and we kind of conceptualize it. And some of us salespeople, myself included, once I can see it in my head, it's real. It's not real. You haven't done anything about it. A very good dear friend of mine once explained to me about the dreams. Like, you have dreams at night and you wake up, your heart is racing, you're sweating. Why? Because when you're in that dream state, you're experiencing something that feels real in that moment. Now, thank goodness, our body chemistry doesn't allow us to act out in our dreams. Otherwise, we'd be running down the street naked all the time. It's probably not good. But that dream state kind of satisfies a certain amount of closure so that when we wake up, we kind of feel like we've had that experience. And so this is how our body vents off anger and unresolved issues and aggression and all these other things. Well, guess what? Some of this disbelief, or some of this, I'll call it fanciful thinking, occurs when we're interacting with a system and a process as a sales professional. Just because you can envision the future state and how you think it should be, well, it should be like this, it should be like that. No. Your system is going to have limits. Like the systems that you have are going to have limits and prescribed things that they can do and they can't do. And it's up to your process, your behavior to be able to identify those things and create a little bit of a better soup at the end of the day. The next step is tool crafting, and so tool crafting can get complicated, and it's really personality based. I'm a technology geek and I go really deep into technology, but here's the issue with that. Not everybody is. And so I need to create an environment where all of my technology tools are going to be utilized and available to everybody on my team. This is going to set me up for two things. I need to make the tool powerful enough and flexible enough to be operationally significant. It also has to have a very easy user experience. I'm not saying that everyone is technology challenged, but I don't expect any of my team members to be able to have super high technology skills. I want them to be able to get on their phone or sit in front of their laptop and have a very fast user experience. So it's seamless, where they're not clunking their way through, well, now I got to put this information here and this information here. And believe you me, the very first time that system's not working in alignment with their expectations, the user adoption goes right down the hill. And so as a leader, when you start thinking about tools, what I want you to do is start with the easiest, most simple things first. So right now, I guess about 85% of realtors are using Google in the country right now. So this means that they already have Google Sheets, and they got Keep, right, inside there, and Calendar, right? These three things, and Contact Manager, right, Contacts. These four tools are incredibly powerful if they're used correctly and you understand what they are. I wholeheartedly recommend that as a leader, you already have a group calendar. I want that calendar to say something like marketing or outreach, and everybody on your team has access to that calendar. Some of the people might have edit ability and some are read-only ability, depending on what role they fill in your organization. This is the primary way that I communicate with my team. Why? Because they're walking around all day long with their smart device, and they can't really say, well, I didn't know, I didn't see the email. And that's the other thing it does. It cuts down on the email noise. So if I'm sending emails out all the time, it's very easy for someone to ignore it or just not see it or notice it, or it just gets caught up in the haze, particularly when you say reply all, and you get into this bad email whirlwind where what you're currently discussing in email doesn't have any relevance to the subject line, and you can't find the email in the future. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. So do this. Establish a calendar. And you can, certain things happen at certain days. Maybe your sales meeting happens weekly, and you open up the calendar and you go ahead and you put in the agenda items that are going to be covered in your sales meeting on that day. It's also an outreach, right? So what are the anniversary of the closings of our transactions, and who needs to get a CMA on the anniversary of their transactions? What are the other things I'm communicating to my team with the calendar? Well, any kind of special projects. Guess what? Christmas happens every year toward the end of the year, and we're going to do a client appreciation event, and we need to start planning that out really in October so we can find an appropriate venue, and we need to figure out what the budget is, and we know how fast time goes. And so let's put that on the calendar so that it reminds us to have a conversation about it. I'm telling you right now, the Google Calendar is free, and it's probably one of the most powerful tools you have at your disposal. Now Sheets, same thing, right? So you might keep your basic client database inside of a spreadsheet in Google Sheets. Now, depending on who's on your team and who can look at this is super important, because maybe not all of your leads are shared with the entire team, but maybe you have a team lead sheet and there's some accountability around that. Maybe those are your Zillow leads or some other common divided leads. So you can have a regular update on what's going on with this lead. At what stage is this lead in? Have you spoken with them? What's the last conversation you had? What's their level of motivation? When do they plan on transacting? This is going to create some real accountability in your team. Team members become accountable to each other, but they also become accountable to you. But you're never the bad guy, because it's all about, well, what's on the sheet, right? So it's an administrative function. What's on the sheet? What's on the sheet? Keep. Keep is another Google product inside the Google 9 tiles in the upper right-hand corner. And you can put to-do lists in there and assign them to specific people. Like, how convenient is that? That person might be an assistant. They might be a virtual assistant. They might be your buyer's agent. They might be your business partner. And depending on who you want to look at that, is just simple. You just don't share it with people that you don't want to see it. It's really this simple. Now, what did we just talk about? A suite of tools in real estate that's free that are already on your phone. Like, it's just not going to get simpler than that. Now, there is a tendency, and I don't necessarily want you to fall into this trap, but the tools that we start using, we have a tendency to keep using. We don't always want to give something up, like our warm blanket. Well, this is the way we've always done it. So if you do have a succession plan and you do want to get into a more managed database, like a CRM or a group CRM, with a lot of additional capacity, then what I really recommend is you only operate in the Google Apps environment probably no more than 12 months. What you're going to do is you're going to start conditioning behavior. Okay, that brings me to my third point. So now your team is really adept and they understand the kind of the behavior that's expected and the tools that are available within Google Suite and what your expectation is as a director. You're not a doer, remember, in this role. And people are pretty compliant with that. It seems pretty good. It seems like people are using the calendar. They show up to my sales meetings. If I'm passing along additional information to them, there's attachments in the calendar. And so maybe it's my sales meeting agenda or something I handed out during the sales meeting, like a new policy and procedure around putting your paperwork in SkySlope or DocuSign, whatever you're using. And it's an attachment. It's right in there. And I'm getting a rhythm here, and I'm creating some accountability. Perfect. Now, I'm thinking to myself, man, is there a way to really, really integrate the other parts of my business into this very simple methodology? So you start looking for a CRM. And it gets very complicated very fast because there's about a bazillion CRMs out there. Everyone claims to be the perfect end-to-end solution. And that is, we're going to be able to handle your paperwork. We're going to be able to handle your marketing. We're going to be able to handle your drip campaigns. We're going to be able to manage your database. We're going to blah, 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 blah. And the answer is maybe. But if it's more complicated than your ability to comprehend it or craft it or understand it, then you cannot do this alone. You're going to have to bring somebody else into your environment that has a higher level of expertise in this. This person might already be in your organization. This person might be a buyer's agent who really doesn't want to expand their business, but in operations, they're operationally proficient and they've got some technology skills. You might want to bless this person and make them your DBA, your database administrator. And the first thing you're going to task this person with is a project. And the project is identify the right CRM for our team. At which point you're going to get with me or somebody else, and we're going to start listing out, like, what are the functionality, what are the features, like what are the requirements and the functionality features that I require in this CRM. You don't want to select the product that's not expandable, because what if your team expands? You don't want to select a product that's totally integrated 100% into your own personal tools, because at some point in the future, if you sell your brokerage or you sell your team off to another entity, part of that database, that database has probably got a lot of value in it, and it needs to go along as an asset. So you need to find a thing that's kind of separate. It can integrate with your world as you want, and then you can pull your integration out of there, and all the contacts and the leads and the process and the system is a standalone process. This is complicated, a little bit complicated. You also want to make sure that it works really, really well with all the other internet apps that you're going to come in contact with. There are a lot of products out there that say, oh, you can integrate this with MailChimp or this or that. You don't need MailChimp. You don't need this and this and this. I'm just here to tell you right now, there's no such thing as the perfect CRM that does everything at a super high level. The odds are much better that you are going to have some kind of a centralized CRM that does some things really, really well, and you're going to love it. And other things, it's like, man, every time we send an email out through the CRM, it goes right to spam. Why is that? Well, it's because it's not playing well with Google Analytics, right? It just gets sucked out of the universe. Spam, spam. So how do you avoid that? Well, guess what? There's specific CRMs out there that are designed to deal with that very issue. I'm a huge fan of Salesforce, but Salesforce can be complicated. There's a lot of other products out there that are very specifically designed to real estate teams and organizations. Get online and start doing some research. Number one. Number two, ask your branch manager. Number three, go find another team that you have a lot of respect for and ask them a simple question. Hey, what technology do you guys use? So here's crazy. Sometimes you're going to get this, well, what do you mean? I don't know. But sometimes you're going to run across someone that's like, I've totally figured it out. Here's what we do. Boom, 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 boom. They'll share the information with you because they're proud. They're proud that they figured it out, and they should be. Take the time and the effort and the energy required on the front end of this process. Make sure this tool integrates well with Google products, particularly your Gmail, and make sure you get as much single environment capacity as you can. In other words, okay, well, I'm in this CRM product, but then I have to go to MailChimp, but MailChimp doesn't work in every circumstance, and so I found someone else and now I do this. No, 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 no. You want to be able to find a CRM where you can integrate these other vendors if necessary and keep yourself in one space. This is going to help with reporting and efficiency and training. You don't want to have to train someone or train your replacement to say, oh, and by the way, there's 15 different things you have to take a look at. There's already a lot going on with just the MLS and creating real estate documents, storing documents, and distributing documents for signature. All that stuff sometimes can be integrated into your CRM. Take the time you need on the front end of this and get this done.